Welcome everybody, and we're back. It's the Coping Mechanism Series 2, Episode 1. So have we all been? It's been a while since we went on this podcast last season.
I'm being blinded at the moment, and it's not the lights. And I'd like to know whether you've got a license for those, really.
Taking the Mickey out of my shirt.
No, not at all.
Well,
No.
I thought I had a bit of colour. It is summer after all. Look at you two all in
If
white.
you have to.
So
James.
right. So let's crack on, because this is a big episode. So 3 months ago, biggest change to private renting in a generation landed. Section 21 went, fixed terms changed, landlords had to rethink possession, rent increases, notices and compliance. There were plenty of headlines, some helpful, some hysterical, but now we're 3 months in and the real question is simple. What has actually changed? So before we get into detail, Si, what do you think has been generally the biggest shift that you've noticed in landlord conversation since the D-Day 1st of May?
I think landlords are more cautious. They want some more practical answers. I personally thought it would be, they whipped it up into a kind of a whirlwind and it was going to be a huge thing. And it is a huge thing, but not, I don't think, as people were expecting. More conversations about selling, but then there were anyway. They wanted some clear and concise answers, really. Fixed terms has always been an issue. I think they've all got a bit jittery on that, but you kind of put those fears to bed. We have obviously no fixed terms anymore and notice periods, but in all, generally, it's shifted from, can I let safely, I think, to be quite honest with you. And it's just putting people's fears at ease, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we're in this media world where the anticipation is it's just built up into a frenzy, mostly negative, because that's how we operate nowadays. What about you, Laws, from some sort of operations point of view? Does it feel like a legal change, or is it more of a systematic thing?
I mean, I think it's a bit of both. We are still getting a lot of questions around, are my tenants renewing? What can we do? And the answer is...
Even though they can't renew.
Exactly, yeah. So a lot of landlords are still not really noticing the change but yeah, we get a lot of landlords, what can we do about this? And unfortunately, it's not a lot at this moment. So yeah, I think landlords are still relying on agents quite a lot for the information and the guidance and everything else. So
yeah, I mean, we're going to come on to sort of evidence and stuff because that's where it boils down to. So basically, in this episode, we're not here to scare landlords. We're not here to pretend nothing has changed either. So we're looking at what landlords have learned, what the risks are now, and what sensible landlords should be doing. So we're 3 months in, which is what this episode's called, 90 days in. So before the 1st of May, a lot of the conversation was about what might happen. Landlords are starting to see what these reforms mean in real conversations with real tenants, rent reviews, management processes, long-term decisions about whether they stay in the market. So in terms of that side, what sort of what are landlords asking now specifically that they perhaps weren't asking before the changes came in?
I think if obviously on the ones that are looking to sell, it was very much always in the previous days, right? Remove the tenant, get vacant possession, and we'll get it sold. But I think now it's whether they can sell with the tenant in situ and whether that's financially viable. And I think we will discuss it further throughout, but having a long-term tenant paying a guide rent is, well, it's like gold. And if you're going to keep them, then, again, it negates the renter's rights if you're going to sell it to another landlord as well. So I think in that respect, it's more now, can I sell? Yes, I can still sell, but let's look and see whether we can keep the tenants in situ and sell it to an investor landlord, certainly. And I think that's probably, a realistic approach for quite a few of them, unless it's, a larger property and it doesn't stack up. Again, more about rent guarantee, future of tenants, and again, long-term tenants, keeping those are pretty much like gold, really.
Okay. So, as I say, 3 months in, 90 days, we're probably at the position where, for the majority of landlords, not a lot's changed because, the tenant was in there before the 1st of May, tenant's probably still in there. But in terms of what could happen, what do we think landlords should be looking at? What should they be reviewing at this 3-month point?
I mean, obviously, compliance is always the most important. So ensuring that you've got your gas safeties in check, your EICRs, making sure your deposit's been protected, you've got your prescribed information, it's all been served and within the, the required time. So we've just had a management takeover, haven't we, Si? And there's been it's cropped up that the previous agent didn't register the deposit in the required time frame. So the landlords bought the property, the solicitors haven't done the due diligence, so we've picked it up and advised the landlord and maybe said you need to refer this back to your solicitors. But, those things are really important because if that landlord needs to rely on repossession, then they're going to have to give the deposit back before they serve notice. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, they're not going to get the property back. So,
and then he's got a potential 3 months plus the
Exactly.
deposit fine for
yeah,
not,
and the
registering,
fine,
for not
exactly,
registering
yeah.
it within 30 days.
So it's just making sure, even if you're buying a property with a tenant in situ, just making sure that the compliance is there and your solicitors have done the due diligence, basically, because it's so important. We always ask for the last inspection report and things like that as well when we do takeovers, just so we can see the condition. Simon will always go and do an inspection as well, won't you, just to make sure
I think
FFHH is
so
there.
I think certainly before we've taken over management properties and just done the admin side and the takeover side, but not inspected them before we've actually done it. So that's another step we put in place now. We inspect them before we even start the ball rolling with the admin side. Because you just never know. Even like Laura's just said, because they're being managed by an agent doesn't mean they're compliant, and if they're certainly managed by a private landlord, then double so. But again, doesn't mean because it's being managed by a current landlord or current agent that it complies.
I think this all comes back to what necessarily isn't that it's going to happen now, but it's the future. Because I personally think the most common way of selling in the future for the right sort of property will be landlord to landlord sales, because rents right up to completion for the old landlord, rent straight from completion for the new landlord, tenant stays in, everybody's happy, but all that big compliance checklist needs to be in order for a landlord to be willing to buy the property in the first place. So I mean, it's a bit getting your house in order before you make a big decision, because at some point you'll probably need to make a big decision, and that's it's the right moment now to sort of stop guessing and review every property in your portfolio. So just want to talk about Section 21, because obviously that was the headline. Section 21's gone for years. As Simon said, landlords had a route to end a tenancy without needing to prove fault. This has now changed. Landlords have not lost every route to recover the property. They just, sounds so simple. They need a valid legal reason, the correct route and evidence to support it. So to both of you, really, and let's be in plain English, what does the end of Section 21 mean for landlords? And we're not going to talk about this an awful lot because we've done it in the past. Just headline. What does it mean? What does it mean for their sort of perception of the whole thing?
I mean, I still have landlords now say, the tenants a couple of weeks late on the rent, will come we serve notice? No, I think they forget that the Section 21 go in, even though, obviously you can have your Section 8 for rent arrears. Section 21 was a no-fault eviction. So you could serve that at any point. So if the tenant didn't pay or didn't look after the property very well, they always had that to fall back on. And now they don't. So
No, we haven't got no further. We've got no fault evictions now, haven't we?
No.
And we've got to rely on mandatory or potentially discretionary grounds, but we've got to go down the mandatory grounds, haven't we?
Do you think there's a lack of knowledge out there still? Do you think? Is anybody coming in saying, right, can we serve a Section 21?
I've had.
You're still getting that?
Yeah, we're still getting it, and we're still getting it. Like Laura's just said, a couple of weeks late on the rent, and they failed to realise now you're looking at your 3 months.
What's the reaction when you sort of explain? Sorry, it's gone.
Yeah.
Is it surprise? Is it?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, okay. What do you mean I can't do anything? So yeah, obviously the threshold's gone from 2 months to 3 months and 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So unfortunately, there's nothing you can do, and you've just got to work with your tenant and repayment plans and things like that all in place. So
it's a matter of just being more organised, isn't it?
Yeah.
The evidence matters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On each file, you've got to get it in order, otherwise it's not even worth going down the route of even possession.
No. I've just had one landlord yesterday actually call. It's the first one since the 1st of May.
First Section 8?
Yeah, most landlords, they all panicked and served Section 21s before.
Got them out of the way.
So yeah, yesterday, my first Section 8 to do, so.
Well, I mean, I was going to sort of quickly mention that. Obviously, the 31st of July is the backstop date where the court has to have the hearing from Section 21s that were served prior to the 1st of May.
So on Monday, I had the last one go through. So, where a tenant had returned the keys.
Yeah.
I've got 2 more order of possessions. I mean, they're already in place with the court, so they're just going through now. So, yeah, end of an era. Got them over the line.
Absolutely. Fixed terms. Again, we'll just tackle it in the same way. It was one of the headline things. It's more of a mental shift, I think. Fixed term tenancy gone. Landlords were obviously used to 6-12 month tenancies, giving them a sense of certainty and predictability. Now, assured tenancies are periodic tenancies. So landlords sort of need to think differently about, and this is a planning thing, they need to think differently about retention, planning ahead, ongoing management. What do we think that landlords are finding the sort of hardest to get the heads round?
I think, where do we start? Fixed terms, a lot of landlords, 6 months, or even on most of them that we were doing before renters' rights come in, it was a year tenancies, most of them were, and that was the common. And they could put it away, you lock it away for a year, you haven't got to worry about it, besides your maintenance, besides your bits and bobs, you were locked away. So there's that uncertainty, which again, you've got now tenant notices. Again, we've had quite a few tenants wanting to give the 1 month's notice. So again, they're not informed or haven't been informed or not up to date. So a lot of tenants are wanting to give the 1 month's notice.
So it's 2 months legally.
2 months, yeah.
It can be 1 month if it's agreed between both parties.
By both parties, that's correct.
And let's not forget they've all had the information sheet to inform them of the changes. So it just goes to show that they don't always read everything that's sent out. And
No. And again, we're going back to keeping those landlord and tenant relationships going. And again, if there's always a commercial value to it, the landlord is running at the end of the day a business. If you can keep your tenant for a longer term, it's always the best way to go. Keep that relationship, keep it going, keep their lines of communication going. But I think for most of it, it's been the end of your fixed terms of that certainty or uncertainty, certainly now. And obviously the tenant's giving those all-important 2 months' notice. So effectively, if you're really unlucky landlord, you're 4 or 5 times a year. Is that really going to happen? No. but you've always got that. So you've always got that possibility of it happening.
It's like it's the control that's shifted. The control used to be the certainty of a fixed term, and now the control is down to evidence, good management, good communication, and being prepared. Getting your little lever arch file of or your folder on your desktop prepared for everything that you're going to be needing. Should you need to make that decision moving forward? So I suppose Laura, operational changes with assured periodic tenancies, probably not a lot sort of on the face of it, but anything specific?
I think it's just annual rent reviews are obviously important. So we diarise 3 months before, because obviously you can only increase the rent once a year. So 3 months before, it gives, because the Section 13s have now changed, so you have to give your tenants 2 clear months' notice. So we'll put a diary note in the third month, and negotiate, get the Section 13 issued to give them the 2 months' notice. So it's obviously just making sure that that's covered. At this point, obviously annually, you're going to have your gas safeties due, so making sure that's been carried out, your compliance is in place, monitoring that. And yeah, obviously gone are the days of negotiating with fixed terms. I mean, we still get landlords now, can you find out what my tenant's intentions are? The fixed term's coming to an end. What do they plan on doing? So yeah, we still get the questions all the time, believe it or not. So
yeah, I mean, one of our things at Copa, we're always putting out educational stuff. We're putting out a lot of videos on these things, but it still shows that no matter what you do, no matter what you try and get out there to inform people, some of it just doesn't get seen.
No.
And that's tenants and landlords. You know, it's
both parties. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's important that tenants and landlords take responsibility to look at the stuff, so they are informed sort of moving forward. Because 3 months isn't a long time for this to have come in. It's going to start hitting the fan a little bit more down the way, I think. And then it'll really. You mentioned rent reviews. One of the biggest things, rent review clauses used to be in tenancy agreements, and you can put them up with the rate of inflation and all that sort of thing. So gone are those.
Gone.
So once a year, and rent increases have always been sensitive, no matter what the situation. But now it's a much more structured sort of process. The days of informal increases are gone. So I suppose, Si, what you're seeing with landlords, and I'm gonna aim this at landlords who have not reviewed the rent for a long period of time, and we all know the stories. I've got a really good tenant, I don't want to upset them, and I totally understand it from one point of view, and that might have been okay pre 1st of May. I think there's a little bit more to it than that now.
Yeah, certainly. I think the more we're under pressure to get that, that sort of get it in line with the actual market rent. But unfortunately, as you've just said, with quite a few of them, they've done it because they felt sorry for the tenant, they're their friend, they're the relative, or they don't want to lose a good tenant. And what you're finding is that gap's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And Laura said, we do it every year. We look at the market trend, but what you're looking at, if it's hundreds of pounds different, that then damages your tenant relationship. And if you're going to increase it £300-400 to get it in line, which I'll come to in a minute because it'll bite you back, that then damages your tenant relationship.
And it's got a bigger chance of being thrown out by the first tier tribunal,
exactly.
which obviously tenants can now appeal to if they think the increase is too much.
So again, yes, they've been, kind, they've been nice, but it's come back to, unfortunately, bite them back. But if you get your rent in line, then we go back to selling it to another investor, and no landlord or investor is going to buy something with a yield that's well under. because they know
even though it's got the potential to be good, but
they're buying it on, a potentially them being able to increase it, and really the only chance they've got of doing that is when it comes back for relet. Because if you're doing it every year at 50 whatever pounds to keep it in line, if you've got a huge gap, then you're literally relying on it coming available for remarket.
That's the only time.
Yeah.
New landlord becomes bad cop.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's the market, though, and that's how to achieve your return on your investment.
Yeah.
Which at the end of the day, that's what
It
that's
is,
what
but some
landlords are doing.
landlords have been subsidising it, not even covering the mortgage on these ones which have been, and you can no longer do that.
Okay, quickly on this then. So, in terms of a rent review now, I suppose, Laura, really, what does a sensible and a sensitive rent review process look like now compared to before?
Well, I think most landlords as well, if they've had a long-standing tenant, there is that relationship there, but also you sometimes know a tenant's position a bit more. So if someone isn't as well paid as somebody else, then they do take a view on that. Most of our rent reviews, there is a lot of negotiating first. So, you can always ring a tenant and say, this is what your landlord wants. Most of them, they accept it, they think it's fair. But obviously you get some tenants that aren't, especially in this day and age, they're not in a financial position. So 9 times out of 10, we will negotiate that where tenant and landlord are happy before we just go and issue a Section 13, because then it keeps both parties happy. So, if a landlord just wants to jump a bit more, we do comparables online, and that's your evidence in the event that it does go to tribunal.
Yeah.
Then
Again, back to that word.
Yeah, you've got to have your evidence and everything else just to confirm you can justify that new rent. It's not landlords being unreasonable.
No, it's not. No. And I think you've got to pitch it, and the way most of you do is, it is guide is 800, you're paying 6. Landlord will get to 7, and you get to that sort of happy medium in between. Landlord gets some sort of increase, and the tenant, pays accordingly.
Yeah.
Maybe not market value, but you've just, you get it all the time. You can't get blood out of the stone. And if you haven't got that income to keep it going, then, that's the easier way of doing it.
And if your tenant's not going to be able to afford it, and you're just going to put them in arrears, there's no point. So,
no. It's communication. It's a compromise. It's just looking at every situation individually, isn't it? So I suppose what are the dangers if landlords get rent increases wrong, if they're doing them themselves, for example?
Yeah, well, if they're just in the nicest way, if you want them to be greedy and your tenant knows that that's unfair, then it's going to go to tribunal at the end of the day. So if you haven't got your evidence to justify why you're putting it up to that amount, then it's only going to come back and bite you at the end of the day. And then you probably have spoiled a relationship, especially if you're a self-managing landlord. You're probably going to have a better relationship because you're dealing with each other on a day-to-day basis. So just ensuring that everything's done correctly, and just communicating better, really, and making sure that you can justify exactly why you're doing it. So
I think before sort of 1st of May, it was a tactic, wasn't it, for landlords to incentivize tenants to leave, shall we say? By putting the rent up. But again, that's been cut off now by the first tier tribunal, and obviously the ability to challenge rent increases. So small increases regularly, rather than a surprise attack and banging it up by a lot is going to improve everything.
I think £25 to £50 a year, it's reasonable. Some landlords do slightly less, just to keep it in line, but to keep tenants happy. So, but again, it's the communication and everything else that's really important there.
Okay, we've mentioned it a few times, evidence, and I sound like a broken record, and it can sound boring, but it's the only thing. It's the only thing that is going to help landlords achieve what they want to achieve moving forward. So let's look at a typical sort of property file, if you like. What should every property or every landlord have in that evidence file?
Yeah. Signed tenancy agreement, confirmation that you've registered the deposit within 30 days of receipt and that you've issued your prescribed information. Obviously gas safety, and it's got to be completed correctly. Landlord's details have got to be on there. Sorry,
we've had quite a few recently, haven't we?
So many.
Postcodes are missing.
Even the postcode. Yeah, the license number of the engineer, really important.
Yeah,
I'll tell you a story. Actually, I had a landlord ring a couple of weeks ago to say, I've sent you a gas safety over. A couple of days later, he'd called and said, I don't know what made me do this, but I've searched the license number on the gas safe register and he's not coming up. I've rang him, he said, my license has expired.
It's not one of our contractors, is it?
No, it's not. Absolutely not. This is the landlord's own. I'm on holiday at the minute. I've not had a chance to renew it. I'll do it when I get back. And then avoided all the landlord's phone calls. So then when he said, I think it's best practice that I get a new gas safety done. I said, I think it is. I rang the tenant to let him know that you're going to have another engineer call you, because otherwise he would have been awfully confused. And he said, well, to be honest, I've not had anybody come and do my first one.
Double whammy.
So the landlord paid this guy to go and do a gas safety, and no checks were done. So yeah, again, that license number is actually really important, because if you do want to go and do your own checks on the engineer, then took me by surprise, that one did. I don't think I've had that in the 15 years.
I don't think we've had that one before.
But yeah, obviously that's just so important. EICRs, EPC, right to rent checks, really important. An inventory as well, signed by the tenant ideally. Photographs as well. You know, sometimes you just have a written inventory with a brief description and no photos. It's not worth the paper.
Always goes back to the same conversation landlords have. Well, it's unfurnished. Right, okay. Well, you've still got bricks and mortar, you've still got a kitchen, a bathroom, and you've still got an asset over 100,000. So you wouldn't do it with a car, so why are you doing it with your home? But they just have this idea that there's no movable no fixed furniture, so I don't need an inventory. Mad.
Yeah, but the damage doesn't tend to happen on furniture. The damage tends to happen on the fabric of the building, and the walls and doors and architraves and woodwork.
I've had that numerous times already this year. Even in 2026, there's no furniture there. Don't need an inventory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just quick, when you mentioned signed tenancy agreement, and I think it's just prudent to say we're not assured short-hold tenancies anymore. We are assured periodic tenancies. I'll get that right. So you know, if you are self-managing and you're doing your own tenancy agreement, don't just download one off the internet. You know, they are your safety net, one of the safety nets, and it's really important that you get the right template, the right tenancy agreement. Otherwise, nothing will work.
No, nothing will ever stand in court.
Massively important.
I had one before. You did download it all, but used an out-of-date right to rent one, and you just think, you know, you go online, it doesn't mean it's the up-to-date version.
No. I think the other thing too, you talked about payment plans earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a payment plan, make sure it's detailed.
Yeah.
Make sure it's you're allocating every single payment, and keep evidence when that payment plan isn't adhered to.
Yeah.
Because that's really important as well, because it just builds up your case.
Yeah.
Because every eviction is going to need court involvement. So if you've got a case of evidence and you can give it to the judge and say, right, there you go, look through that. And he'll go,
Tenant said he'll pay on this date and he hasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's all hearsay and it's all text messages and it's a bit of WhatsApp and it's a bit of a conversation and a note written down on a pad, it's going to not be good enough.
I had a landlord the other day, his tenant's not paid, and I've been trying to get hold of him and not had any luck. The landlord was going around the other day to collect a key off him. So the tenant finally came back to me and said, well, I'm seeing the landlord tonight. And I said, that's fine. But, you know, I still need to know where the rent is and when it'll be paid so I can let him know. And then the landlord said to me, well, what do I do? What if he tells me and I've got nowhere to write it down? Those were his exact words. What if I forget what he's told me? What if I have nowhere to write it down? And then there's that whole he said, she said. So, yeah, I just said to him, well, just whatever he tells you, just ask him to reiterate it to me. Just ring the agent, let them know. We've got audit systems. We're capable of keeping track of everything. So that was one of his first concerns.
No, it's crazy. And I think one thing I do want to say as well is when things are going well and your tenancy is going along and everybody's paying on time and your evidence keeping can drop off. It's human nature. That's what happens. But you can't let that happen.
No.
If your tenant's paid on the dot every month, it still needs to be detailed.
Absolutely.
If everything's going to plan and it's the best tenancy you ever had, you still need to keep that evidence going, because the difference between evidence and the sort of casual arrangement thing is worlds apart moving forward. So I think that's really important. So I suppose quickly, what happens when a landlord, we know they've done the right thing practically, but can't prove it. Where does that leave them?
Well, they're exposed, aren't they? So if a judge, you can't.
They need to prove they've acted properly.
Yeah.
At the end of the
If
day,
you've got no evidence, there's no proof.
It's hearsay, and you know what's going to happen when you get to court if you've not got the proof.
I mean, how long's a typical hearing? How long do you get in front of a judge? What is it? 10 minutes? 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Something like that.
You got 10 minutes.
Yeah. To prove
so the only way you're going to fill that 10 minutes is with a file full of stuff
with evidence
that you can go through. You don't want any backwards and forwards conversation saying, well, this happened, that happened, the other happened, and she said that, he said that, and it's pointless.
You're scrolling on your phone on WhatsApp going, well, there was a message on the 23rd.
So that 10 minutes is all you're going to get possession of your property.
Yeah.
So everything needs to be
in that file ready.
Yeah, I mean, everything points back to evidence, doesn't it? So quickly on arrears are the one area where obviously landlords need to be particularly careful. There's lots of reasons why tenants get into arrears. Most landlords, want to be fair. Nobody wants to be sort of heavy-handed and unnecessarily, but fair doesn't mean being just passive and letting things go, does it? So when arrears first start, what's the biggest mistake people make?
Waiting too long. We've all heard the stories, haven't we? You've heard them, we've all heard them. But for a private landlord who's probably only got one, they'll probably be hearing that story for the first time. And it carries on a little bit longer, and it festers a little bit more, and it snowballs, and you end up with even more of a case. And it grows until, sort of position becomes much harder to obviously act on it. And I think that's the main thing. Whereas if you've got an agent or Laura who's on the case a little bit quicker, but again, tenants will always give the stories, and some of them are quite genuine. But the longer you leave it, then I think the more problems you're going to have.
It's getting specific information as well, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Not, I'll sort it out next week.
Yeah.
When?
You need to know the issue.
What day?
And you do.
And again,
you hear the same story.
You do, and again,
some people have 3 MOTs a year. It's crazy.
You document every conversation that's had. Landlords won't go back home and go onto their laptop or whatever and put that communication in. It won't be there. It's gone. No. And again, you're working back, and we go right back to evidence based, and it won't be there at all.
So I think as well, it's important to do, for certainly with arrears, get a standard process, even if it's just on an A4 piece of paper, right? Day after the rent's due and it's not been paid, quick phone call.
Yeah.
Then, as time progresses, moves on a bit more formal.
Yeah.
And just make sure you stick to that process. Again, it's just good practice. So up to the point where it starts getting a bit out of hand, what should we remember if arrears do become a potential possession issue?
Just clear written records. Like you say, you just try and nip it in the bud straight away. First couple of days, especially if it usually comes through like clockwork, after a couple of days you think that's not right. And then if there's an issue, generally tenants don't come back to you. So you've got to keep your audit of the contact that you've tried to make, and when the tenants do come back to you, just establishing what that issue is, getting a clear plan in place. Okay, you can't pay on this date, when can you pay? And just making sure that that's literally followed by. So, okay, I'll pay on the 1st of July. Well, the 1st of July's here and you've not paid. So yeah, just basically making sure that the plan is adhered to, and if it's not, you reach back and find out.
I think also they become quite emotional, don't they, landlords, to the point of being aggressive, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got
thing
that
as well.
counsellor side as well, which you've got to sort of.
But that's all
water
part of the evidence as well.
It is, yeah.
Trying to prove with your communications with the tenant that you're not being aggressive and heavy-handed.
And harassment gets thrown at you,
that's
and
gonna go against you.
yeah,
Yeah,
very much so.
the pressure. Yeah, sometimes obviously there's a lot of pressure from a landlord as well, and you have to try and remind them that I can't. The best thing to do is not to put too much pressure on that every day. A couple of times a week, but
Whereas you appreciate landlords have got a mortgage to pay, you also cannot get, as the saying goes, blood out of the stone.
Exactly.
So you've got to get that happy again. Communication.
I think one thing that to reiterate really is when a landlord's thinking of selling, I think it's important to have that, certainly from our point of view, if we manage it, even if we're not managing it, have the conversation early, because there's 3 routes to sell.
Yeah.
You either wait till your tenant gives notice, but there's no control over time.
No.
You sell to another landlord, which could be the best way, could be the most popular way moving forward, or you go down the Section 8 route, which involves all sorts of stuff and restrictions with Ground 1A and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have that conversation really early on, to look at the property, look at the plan, look at the timescales, look at this, look at everything, and decide what the best way forward. I mean, you're not gonna put a 4-bedroom detached back on the investment market, so you're going to need vacant possession. But
it's like going back 30 minutes ago. A good tenant now is an asset. It's not an obstacle. And if you've got a right property, potentially getting the right rent and the yields there, then certainly leave them in. Whereas again, before it was very much vacant possession. We'll get more people through the door, but now probably not so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of elements to think about now, more so when a landlord is even considering selling. Not right at the point where they've made the decision. It's should I? We're going to sort of finish this off now, so we'll finish with the positive side, because there is a positive side. Trust me. So despite the noise and all that's going on, there'll still be landlords who do very well in this market. We said it right throughout the whole build process that the landlords who survive will be the ones that thrive, because supply goes down, demand stays the same or goes up. The best properties will command the highest rents, and that's what's happening. And we're not even going to talk about rent controls and all the stuff that's going on in the news at the moment. So, but those landlords are unlikely to be the casual landlords who don't take notice of what's going on. So, what type of landlord? What do landlords need to be to thrive in the new world?
Well, first they need to price it properly. Let's get that one. You've got a vacant property, you need to price it properly. You need to maintain them as well. Landlords in the past not maintaining them, let them deteriorate throughout the years, did a little bit of paint work and a few carpets and thought they refurbished it. That's a no-no again. You've got to maintain them, because if you maintain them, you keep your tenant. And a good tenant is worth a lot more now than certainly before. And if you maintain them, when you do come to sell it, you've not got people knocking you down on the price again because they've got to upgrade it. So certainly maintain your property, and not just a lick of paint either, because that's not going to wash.
Picking your tenant.
Yeah. Certainly on most properties now, you're getting 5, 10, 15 viewings, and you've got to funnel that down to whatever your requirements are.
Pick your
Long-term
application
tenant,
correctly.
look at your applications, make sure you're picking the right tenant, because once they're in, let's face it, they're in. And if you've got a good one, that's another card, that's another ace up your sleeve when you come to sell it to another investor.
Yeah, massively important. And obviously, all you can do is I use this a lot. Prevention's better than cure. You've got to do all you can to make that asset work, because trying to solve the problem when something kicks off is a lot harder than getting it right in the first place. What in terms of a paper trail? Quick back to the evidence thing. What would worry you most with a set of records in terms of priorities and whatever?
Everything. Pretty much everything. So obviously I deal with management takeovers. So when I'm getting the paperwork from a previous agent or a previous landlord, I may as well ask for their shoe size. I ask for everything. So making sure that tenancy agreements are not just the original renewals, you need to see the renewal agreements each year as well. Obviously the biggest ones are compliance, making sure they've had an annual gas safety done, making sure that the deposit was registered. I touched on it earlier that we had one where it hadn't been registered in time, and that was an agent that had done that, not even a private landlord, which is quite scary. So making sure that we have rent account statements sent over. We don't really want to take over a property where tenants are in arrears, or if they are, that there's a set plan in place and that's all been communicated and agreed and everything else. So
we have had them in the past where your landlord said, "Oh, I've got these 3, do you want them?" And naturally we've been, it's a natural thing to say, "Yeah, lovely, thank you." Why wouldn't we want 3 properties? But then you've always got the hidden sting. Well, actually, one's in arrears, and you think, well, we're actually managing
One hasn't
them
got a gas
managing
safety.
for nothing.
Exactly, you're managing them for nothing because you've got no rent coming in, so you've got no management fee. So you've just taken over something that's going to take a lot of time for absolutely.
And then it's left to us to try and get the tenant out.
Yeah.
But I think the sort of takeaway from that in terms of your records is the issue is not always a bad tenant or a bad landlord. The landlord might be great, the tenant might be great, but if your paper trail's crap, it negates everything.
Yeah.
It makes everything sort of not sort of worth it. So I think just to sort of finish off, don't panic, get your house in order is really the sort of takeaway. So, if you're a landlord and the last 3 months have made you question whether your tenancy, your paperwork, your rent, your compliance, your long-term plan is not where it should be, now is the time to review it so you can make a better decision moving forward. Not when the rent stops, not when the tenant complains, not when you decide to sell in the future. Do it now. Private renting's changed. Good landlords are still the cornerstone of the sector, and they're becoming more prevalent. The good landlords are becoming more prevalent. The difference is that good intentions are no longer enough. You need good systems, good advice, and a clear plan. So, if you do own a property in Derby, Alfreton, Burton, anywhere in Derbyshire that we look after, and you want a practical review of where you stand, give us a call. Just a conversation, making sure you've got your house in order. Yeah?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Very much
So yeah, thank you both for your inputs.
Pleasure.
Laura's thinking, I don't want to do my second podcast.
I'm still staring at the shirt. Well, I'm trying not to.
So yeah, thank you very much. I know we cover a lot of technical stuff because I'm sorry, but lettings is very technical nowadays. So it's not as joyous as a lot of podcasts that you might see, but hopefully the information that you get from it will help you make better property decisions, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's right. Thank you.